The reason that I started this podcast was to demonstrate the power of sport as a vehicle for change. And in your own words, how would you describe the power of sport and what it means to you?
Yeah, I think sport is crucial. I've seen it firsthand that it's actually saved people's lives. We, as my organisation, we use sport as the hook to engage young people. We get them motivated, we get them inspired, and that is fundamental for any young person to get on that right pathway. I've seen it firsthand that sport plays an incredible part in someone's life, in terms of just getting them going, getting them inspired, and just getting them moving forward.
Yeah, perfect. And we'll come on to talk about your organization in a little bit. But before you started that, you started your career out as a teacher. What kind of inspired you to get into teaching?
Yeah, I always had a background in coaching football, and I then joined a school to do coaching. And then it was my head teacher that said, "Oh, David, why don't you get into teaching? Because there's not many male teachers out there, especially in primary school." So I was like, "Do you know what? It's worth a go." I enjoyed coaching, and it's sort of similar. So I studied. I'd done early years degree, and it went on from there. And then I delivered sort of the sports as well as the educational side, and it was really really fun. I absolutely loved it up until the point where I guess we're going to talk about it of what actually happened.
Yes, yeah. So what halted your teaching career, as it were?
Yeah, so I was teaching in Edmonton, and unfortunately, a 6-year-old had a knife in the school and started running with this knife, branching it about. I was I was actually in a staff room having my lunch, and another staff member ran out to me and said, "Oh, this child has a knife." I was like, "No, there's not a chance a child has a knife." So I ran outside to the playground area, and there he was holding this knife. Didn't really understand what he was carrying, but he was shouting out things like he wanted to kill me, wanted to stab me. All the other teachers were closing the other classroom doors so he didn't run in. And I started to try and talk to him and speak to him, but he just, wasn't having any. He was so angry, such in a rage, and he started running towards me with the knife. But luckily, he threw the knife up into the air. And then that moment, I realised that we needed to do more to support young people. I guess key things happen in your life, and it makes you trigger something in you to make a difference. And I think that was it. That was the start of the organisation changing lives.
Yeah, that's triggered all sorts of emotions, but it's so fantastic that you've used something that's quite pivotal to kickstart and try to launch something as impactful as changing lives. I just did a little bit of research before. I've got some stats on knife crime and young people, and it's actually a bit of a crazy phenomenon. Just a few here. A fifth of all offences involving knife crime or offensive weapons were recorded by a child aged 10 to 17. If you took all of the people from 2012, young boys and girls that have been detained by police, that would be 35,000 people, and you could fill one of 10 Premier League stadiums with that amount. Or more
Mm.
scarily, more than 7 children a day, 10 to 15, were arrested on suspicion of knife crime last year. So it's a pretty crazy stat and something that only appears to be rising. Why do you think that is?
I think it would be even more than that because when I was challenging knife crime and challenging schools, if they didn't want to talk about it, they didn't want the help because they didn't want to admit that there was an issue. So very early in the stages of trying to start this organisation, it was quite hard to try and get it off the ground because people were just saying, no, it doesn't happen in our area. And it was quite sad. It was quite frustrating. They wanted to sweep it under the carpet. So I imagine that there's a lot more schools and a lot more places out there where children are carrying knives and they just sort of sweep it under the carpet. COVID probably hasn't helped being stuck in and not having someone to speak to or talk to. And if they're watching something online, it fuels that what they see and what they do. It's a lot of things. Unfortunately, I've said it previously that it's like a cancer that is spreading across the country, and there is no cure for it. And, you know, it's very frustrating as a co-director of an organisation trying to support young people, and the amount of red tape there is. It's really tough, and all we want to do is support young people and get them on the right pathway. And there's a lot of people like us out there trying to do that, but it is extremely tough. It is very tough out there.
We've just alluded to Changing Lives there. Could you just tell us a little bit more about what Changing Lives is?
So, Changing Lives is an organisation that supports young people through sport, that hooks them onto activities such as football, cricket, tennis, and dance. And then we bring in mentoring, positive engagement. For us, that's worked really well over the course of the 5 to 6 years that we've been running. You know, we've noticed an incredible change in young people now that are going into becoming coaches and volunteers and supporting the community. So that's one part of changing lives. And then we've got our second part, which is supporting refugees and asylum seekers. And we currently have the only refugee football team in the country that plays at a competitive level. And they're called Changing Lives FC. It's going really well, and I'm really proud to manage that team. As well as that, we've got two hubs in Essex, one in Harlow and one in Colchester. Both, Colchester is an old bank that we've converted into a sort of a community space where we've got a community gym, a beauty room, a sports zone, a tea and chat area, a music room, a learning zone, making it really easy for that one person to access everything under one roof. And so, we've got a lot going on. And, from that one, episode or thing that's happened in my life is we're now helping a lot more people than I could ever imagine.
It sounds amazing. You've got a full community space there. We'll move on to talk about Changing Lives FC in a minute. But one thing that you mentioned there is that you've kind of been running for the past 5 years. You're obviously working with young kids. What kind of effects have you seen of the pandemic on the kids that you've been working with, and how have you used sport to kind of overcome those challenges?
Yeah, since the pandemic, it's been extremely tough. Just we've seen children on low confidence. We've seen a lack of social skills. Children scared or worried to play sports. So it's been a period of time where we've had to build up that level of confidence within children and getting them involved back into sports. See, for us as a community organisation, our hub was open throughout the pandemic. So we was open for key workers, but there was a lot of children out there that wasn't attending school or attending clubs, etc. And for us now, we're picking up the pieces of the damage that's been left, which is it's a tough task. There's lots of children out there that need sort of one-to-one support to build up their confidence, to build up their motivation, to get them back on the pathway of getting into sport. And for us, we're very stretched as an organisation. I'm very keen for growth and expanding, but there's only so much we can do to cope with the demand.
Now, moving on to Changing Lives FC, you alluded to it there, that it's the only competitive refugee football team. Can you just tell us a little bit about the story behind how you got involved?
Yeah, so I was approached by a lady that initially started running a team called Northrooks FC. She was working within, she was a social worker, and she set up the team just to get the boys playing football, to get them healthy, to get them going. And it slowly built up where she was getting an influx of players that wanted to play, and it was sort of getting overwhelmed for her. And the team were, they were losing quite heavily on some days, and it was hard to control their emotions on some Sundays. And I got approached by the funders, and they asked if I could support her and the team. I went down to meet the boys, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, this is unreal. Like, I never had experienced any form of, like, I don't know, they gave me so much. Their stories were so powerful. They were so respectful. They were so kind. They wanted to learn. They wanted to develop. And for me as a coach, that's all I ever ask for when I, coach a team. You read the media and how negative they paint refugees, and that just all went out the window when you meet them. They are just like you and me. They are human beings, and they are people that deserve a chance. And their stories were unbelievable, and that inspired me to want to support them. And I ended up taking over the club to form it as Changing Lives FC, just because I believed in the team, that it wasn't just a Sunday league team. I wanted to take them higher. I believed that the talent in the team was incredible, and some of them deserve to play at professional league standard. And the first league that I take over, we managed to go to a cup final, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, we lost, but we got them there. COVID happened, unfortunately, and now we've set up into Saturday league football. So we're getting closer to that pyramid where it's leading to professional standards. So yeah, it's an unreal job that I have. It's an extra job that I absolutely love doing every Saturday. It's fantastic, and I absolutely love it.
I can imagine that there's some incredibly powerful stories and kind of different anecdotes that you've heard. I don't know if you have any that you could share with us, just to kind of give us a bit of an insight of who these players are and the challenges that they've faced to get to where they are
Yeah,
today.
so we've got currently our captain Yushri. He's from Sudan. He actually came under a lorry, and he's been on a journey to get to the UK. He speaks a number of different languages, and he came over when he was about 17, 18. And he's a big, strong guy. People would look at him and be quite scared, but honestly, he's like a cuddly teddy bear. He's got a heart of gold, and the challenges that he's faced when he was young, to be under a lorry for about 16 hours. And there's one player that was in a refrigerator. There's boys that have gone on the boats. Yeah, it's, you know what? And these boys are young as well, and they come by themselves. It's tough for them. But from when I see them playing on a football pitch, they're happy. They're enjoying life. They're in college or they're working. So, they're happy. They're giving back. And, that's all you can ask for.
One thing to note as well is that they go through this kind of incredible journey of, real hardship to get here, but then they also arrive here with no support network, no friends. They probably struggle to integrate into the community because there's going to be huge cultural differences from where they're from. And by the sound of it, Changing Lives seems like it's acting as that barrier to kind of integrate them into the community, integrate them into the society. It'd be great if you could tell us a little bit how Changing Lives is helping to transform their lives.
Yeah, so I guess when players or when we get referred refugees, we can offer them the football program, which is something that not many organisations can, especially at the level that we're at now. And we've actually got a partnership with Kit Locker, which is fantastic. We've had partnerships with Fila and Remitly, which are an exchange currency company. So we've had a lot of big brands come to us and wanting to support us, supporting the boys. We help them with mental health sessions, well-being, the sports staff. We can give them voluntary opportunities, paid work if they've got their right to remain. So for us, I see them as people that want to learn and want to do well here in the UK and want to give back. They've gone through so much. They've gone through war. They've gone through murder. They've gone through terror. I believe it's our duty to support human beings, no matter where they come from.
Yeah, I think that's a really powerful word that you just said, duty. And I think you kind of picked up on it there. I think there's obviously a lot of misconceptions about refugees wanting to come and take, but I think actually more of the time they want to come and give because they want to, as you say, integrate, be part of the community and, start a new life that they can, enjoy with the freedoms that we have, especially in this country.
Yeah, definitely.
So what have been the challenges of founding Changing Lives FC that you've encountered?
Yeah, so I guess one of the challenges that we've faced is, well, firstly, funding to try and make sure that we've got the money there to support the boys because obviously the boys can't pay for sessions or kits or anything like that. So it's having to find funders that are able to support the boys. Every season I go through the panic of being able to try and find some money. Luckily, every season, although it's been very close, I've been able to find some money from somewhere. I guess the second thing is the racism and discrimination that we face when playing football. That's always been a tough point when managing the team. And then it's just the abuse that we potentially can get online due to the fact that we support refugees. This is just, I think, a small part in it all, because what we do is the greater good, and it supports the boys on many levels, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah, and do you think enough is being done to protect your players? You mentioned racism is a thing that your team's experienced. Obviously, I imagine, as you say, some of that's come from online, but I imagine sadly some of that's also happened on the pitch.
Yeah, I don't want to paint my boys as they're angels, because they're not. I've seen it firsthand, and the words that people say to our boys on the pitch, the way that the other team try and sneakily say something in their ear to try and get them like angry is disgusting. And we're having to fork out a VO camera to protect our boys. We're having to take a videographer down to protect our boys, to capture it, because when we was putting our incidents into the FA, all they wanted was evidence, and it was literally their word against ours. And sometimes the ref wouldn't hear it, or but would back the other team, and it would be us against them. The only times where it has been successful is when we've had the video footage. Only this season we had someone shout out to one of my players, "Where's your passport?" And you think, why would anyone say that in a football game? It's not needed. And then it's my player that actually got sin binned because of the way he reacted. I've said this previously, but the FA fork out millions of pounds on films and stand up to racism and all that sort of stuff. The big adverts, and it's just, I don't think enough has been done in the grassroots level. There should be, I think, representatives from the FA coming down to be at our games. It may not be at every weekend, but it'd be nice for them to come down and see us in action, and make us feel that we are being listened to. And actually speaking to one of the inclusivity and diversity guys at the FA, he actually turned around and said to me that we sort of belong in a seven-a-side league, because this is what's going to happen. And I was just a bit in shock, actually. I was just like, what? How can you say that? Like, the FA's brand is all about inclusivity and diversity, and you just said to us, "Oh, we're actually better off in a seven-a-side league." It's ridiculous. They should be supporting us. And I'm not saying that we're perfect. However, we are one of the only refugee teams in the country. I feel a lot more needs to be done.
Yeah, and I feel even his, well, I'd say it in inverted commas, solution, that's not going to change anything. It could still happen on a five-a-side pitch. It could happen on a seven-a-side pitch. It could happen walking down the street.
Yeah.
That's not the point. It's about really kind of changing the fundamental beliefs that people have about refugees. And I feel that's probably obviously where the most of the impacts can be had. What do you think are kind of the common misconceptions of refugees, and how do you think kind of working with your team helps you to understand them a lot more and connect?
They see it online, they see it in media that these guys are taking our jobs, they don't deserve to be here. They're just fueled with anger, and it's because the media portray them as negative, not very nice people. But when you actually start to understand them and you unravel the orange peel, you start to see that they're actually like people, like actual human beings, actual people. And I think people forget that. They're so stoked up on anger, they stop to actually think about what they're actually saying and how harmful that could be. Especially when you're on a football pitch, it just seems that everyone is just always so angry all the time. And I think the media play a massive part. I think the government play a massive part in fueling the fire. And it actually, it's just like comes down to the people, and it spreads to us, unfortunately. And I'll mention about our minibus being stolen and torched. We don't know if it's linked, but it was, it's a horrible thing. And it was sort of in the midst of when Gary Lineker came out, when he was supporting refugees, and we use the minibus to collect the boys. We pick up people from the hotels and we take them to sports activities. And that moment, particularly when that happened, made me really upset. Like, I was like, I can't believe someone has done this to us. And it put everything in perspective, because I was like, well, how could anyone do that? It's got our heart logo on the bus, it's got our slogan, and then there are people out there that really don't agree with either the work that we do or what we do. And then with that came the trolls and the vile abuse, saying that good, they're glad that it got burnt. The refugees shouldn't be on the bus. It is sad. It is sad. And I've spoken out publicly on news channels about my support for refugees, and I've been trolled and abused online myself, which is hard. It's painful because then they start bringing your parents involved, start to bring your family involved, and then that's when the issues arise. When your parents say, David, is it all worth it? Is it worth this? So yeah, it can be difficult.
It sounds an incredibly difficult situation. I think one kind of phrase, when we just go back to talking about the media, that the high performance podcast always uses, it's easier to sell tickets to the ghost train than the merry-go-round. It's always easier to sell this kind of vile story that kind of sensationalizes something rather than actually focusing on telling the truth. And I guess, as we kind of alluded to, the government are also guilty. If you look at this whole Rwanda situation, where they've committed hundreds of millions of pounds to send some of the most vulnerable people abroad, it doesn't make sense. They look like they can't deliver it. It's just a lack of understanding, I think, and compassion,
Yeah.
probably at a human level. One of the other things that you alluded to there was, people use sport as an outlet. Even if it's an outlet, you need to be controlled and conscious and cognizant of what you're saying to other people. You also kind of just touched on there that you received personal abuse. Potentially have family members asking, is this something that you can continue with? How did you wrestle with that kind of in your mind, and how did you make that commitment to put your foot down and say, I'm gonna carry on doing what I'm doing because I fundamentally believe it's the right thing to do?
Yeah, and it was tough, especially when your parents are sort of questioning sort of your job and what you're doing. But I just believe that if there's no one else sort of there speaking about them, there's no one else on their side, and there's no one else there supporting what they're doing and their belief of playing football on a Saturday, on a Sunday. I feel like I'm their light, their spokesperson, and they confide in me like I'm like their father. Some of them, they speak to me, they want support, and so I'm there for them. Although my parents had doubts because of the language that people were using against me, I sort of had to go against it and be like, look, these guys need me, and you know what? I think I need them. To be honest with you, it helps me with how I think on life, and it puts everything in perspective. And do you know what? I think it has meeting the boys. It's changed my life perspective, which is amazing.
That's an incredible thing, especially it's a mutual relationship, right? Like, you're
Yeah.
helping them to improve their lives, they're changing your perspective on different things as well. It sounds like you also act as a bit of a sounding board for the boys. It must be hard for them, as we've kind of talked about, with a lack of potential role models and people that they can reach out to. Do you think that enough support's given to refugees to kind of integrate and assimilate into the community?
Yeah, I think a lot more can be done. There are brilliant organisations out there that I know through the work that I do currently. But because there are so many refugees coming over to the UK, it's tough for organisations to support them all with casework, with solicitors. Every one of them wants to stay in the UK, so they're having to fight, the reasons as to why they've come over from the country. So it is tough. Like the money isn't great from what they get from the government. If they haven't got their right to remain, they cannot work at all. So they're in limbo. And some of them are waiting, up to a year for their cases, which can have a detrimental effect on their mental health, which, sport activities help, but they're still in their head, don't have that clarification of if they're going to be going to Rwanda or if they're, staying in the UK, because this is what the government are saying. The Rwanda policy is something that they are pushing, 100%. I don't believe it's going to take place. I think more can be done, definitely, for refugees. We're actually in discussions with the Home Office to support refugees. I'm hoping to, as an organisation, offer the Home Office a service where we can offer wraparound care, providing mental health, well-being, and sports. So we're in discussions currently at the minute because I believe that that's what they lack. As soon as they arrive in the UK, they're given basically a door number and that's it really. They just need extra support and guidance. Some of these guys that come over have mental health issues, have well-being problems, have physical health issues. We need to be there to support them. I guess some people will argue that they can, and they've argued this forever, is that why don't they say stay in the other safe places or France or Spain? But if I was in that situation, a war-torn country, I would want to come to the UK because it is the best country in Europe. It has the best policies, it has the best human rights, it has good standards, and it has people that they know there's people there to protect them. I would do all I can, to try and get to the UK because you would do that for your family, you would do that for yourself because you want the best life possible. And don't people deserve a good life? Don't people deserve a happy life? And that's always been, I think, that's when people don't meet refugees, that's what they always think. They don't deserve to come to the UK. Why don't they stay in France or another safe country? But if you put yourself in their shoes, would you stay there? And why not come to the UK? If you can.
Yeah, exactly. I think you've kind of said it perfectly there, to be honest. It's about choice, but also that opportunity to where you think that you can put your front foot forward. The news probably sensationalizes as well how many people, or the percentage of people that actually want to come to the UK, always
Yeah.
seems inflated. A common theme that we're picking up on here as well is obviously the government's duty, but a theme of kindness and compassion for where people have come from. Do you think a lot of this stems
Yeah.
from a lack of education and potentially something that should be brought on the curriculum so that people are actually correctly informed about who refugees are, where they're coming from?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually was campaigning, and this goes back to our knife crime stuff about supporting children in schools and educating them about knife crime. And it actually is very similar that we should probably do the same with refugees and make people understand as to why and the laws and the regulations, the policies, and just making people understand a little bit better African countries that we don't really hear much of because there's a lot of wars happening in Sudan, in Chad and Eritrea. There's lots. And we don't hear about half of that stuff. The major wars that's happening that we know of is in Ukraine and in Israel. All the other sort of smaller countries, you don't really hear that, and then people sort of don't understand why these men or women, families are coming over to the UK. So I 100% think that education of refugees and asylum seekers should be taught in primary schools, in secondary schools, or even just a day, 1 day a year, just to discuss about educate everyone.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would 100% agree with you there. I feel just kind of stemming on the topics of education, one of the common myths about refugees is they come over here and they're given inordinate amounts of money. One of the things I did before I just jumped on here was just go on and have a look at how much refugees are actually given. And it's incredibly little. They're given around £40 a week to live on if they're
Yeah.
not supplied food. And outside of food, they're given a grand total of £12.74 to live off, which is crazy. A list here: toiletries 69p, medicine 35p, toilet paper 43p, clothing and shoes £3 1p. And I know we were joking around before at the start of this episode, but it's winter. You've come over from a hot country. You don't have any clothes. You want to buy yourself a coat. You can't even buy a coat in a charity shop for £3. I think
Yeah.
it's a lack of understanding. I think if people were actually given the real figures of what refugees were given to survive on, then I think that would also go a long way in helping to stem that gap.
Yeah, definitely.
One thing that we were talking about just before we jumped on here as well was, we know it's really important for people to kind of settle in and integrate into a community. But what I didn't actually realize was that people can be moved anywhere around the country at the drop of a hat. And I believe you've had some experience of that firsthand.
Yeah, so our top goal scorer received a letter just before Christmas that he had to move to the Bibby Stockholm boat, which obviously he was devastated about because he's built up a community friendship. He's been playing in our football team, and he had literally 2 to 3 days to pack up his things and leave. So he asked me if I could represent him, which I'd never done before, to send a letter to the Home Office to sort of argue his case. And I literally had no idea what to do, what to write. But I put something together, basically saying that if he was to move miles away, it would have a detrimental effect for his mental health, his well-being. There's probably closer locations where he can stay, where we can still support him. And then 2 days later, it came in successfully, and he was able to stay. However, he has just recently had another letter, which was, I believe, last week, asking him to leave the hotel now. Again, it leaves him in a place of not knowing what's next. So I've had to write another letter to the Home Office asking if he could be moved to a more closer hotel so that we can continue to support him. Otherwise, he's going to be going, I think it's about 150 miles away to the Bibby Stockholm boat, which is crazy.
Yeah.
I actually might be wrong on the miles, so you might not want to put that in. But it is quite far.
Yeah, I mean, it's still going to be a distance away from a community where he's, do you know what I mean, started to build real roots, started to feel at home, started to actually probably enjoy living in the UK. So it's an incredibly sad thing that as soon as people
Yeah.
start to feel settled, that they can just be kind of moved off at
And
the
just
drop of
and
a
just
hat.
sorry, just on that as well, that I've had football players, my boys, and they're doing really well, and literally I could put them in the team sheet, and they wouldn't turn up to the matches. I wouldn't know anything, and then I find out a week later they've been moved to another hotel in Manchester. They don't have any phone. They've had to give their phone back, etc. And it's just like, wow, like these guys are literally having their world turned upside down literally every month. They don't know if they're coming or going. It is super tough. It's super tough as a refugee in the country. Your life could be turned upside down in a matter of days.
I can only imagine what it feels like for them, just being uprooted, as you say, from Essex to Manchester. A huge
Yeah.
change. I know one thing we've talked about a lot of the negative experience. If we were to touch more on the positive sides, what do you think that the boys' kind of mindset and optimism has taught you?
What was that last bit, sorry?
What do you think that the boys' kind of optimism and mindset? How do you think you've kind of benefited from being around that?
So, well, I think football in particular gives them something to fight for. It makes me want to fight for them. It gives them confidence. It builds up self-esteem. It makes them feel part of the community. It helps me want to grow as a coach. It makes me want to do better. And I think that cohesion, feeling part of something, is so important to the boys. And I think that's why our team is really special, because we must have at least 11 different nationalities playing in one team. Not even Premier League teams have sort of that many nationalities. Yet we're playing a sport which it's a universal language. So it's an interesting team. It's a very diverse team, but I absolutely love it. And the boys, well, the boys absolutely love it. Coming to training on the Wednesday night and playing and putting a kit on the Saturday morning, it gives them so much pride. It gives them something to wake up for, and it gives them that belief that something's there for them, which is important.
How did you manage your transition from your teaching career to setting up Changing Lives to transitioning to Changing Lives FC? How did that happen?
Yeah, it was a really hard phase in my life because I had quite a secure job teaching with a nice wage, comfortable wage, and then it was running an organisation where we're based on funding, and at that time it was very difficult, and I couldn't be sure of my wages. I had a house, I had a mortgage to pay, but I believed in it. I believed in what we were doing. I believed that what we were doing was a good thing, and that we could secure extra funds to support the community, and that I could make this my full-time job. Never did I believe that I'll still be running it 6 years later, having two hubs, a football team, and all the other crazy stuff we've got in our hubs. But it was a risk, and I don't think you get anywhere without taking a few risks on the way. But if you believe in something and you're truly passionate about it, you have to go, you have to follow your heart. And I think as well, I had the confidence that if it didn't work out, then I could easily go back to my teaching role. But I had every hope that this would continue and I would be able to create changing lives and push it throughout Essex and hopefully the UK.
You seem like someone that's incredibly ambitious. Where do you think that mindset's come from? Is it something that you had instilled in you from an early age, or is it something that you've just kind of developed over time?
Yeah, I think my parents. My dad was a paramedic. My mum's a nurse. They cared for people. They installed the kindness, the ambition, just being kind to people and helping people. And my dad, especially, he was such an ambitious. He would be the David and Goliath, always fighting the big battles, And unfortunately, he's passed away only very recently. But he inspired me so much to never give up. He was always with me throughout the Changing Lives program. He was a major part of my life and making Changing Lives to what it is because of how he brought me up. And I think that is important. And I think that's why I'm so invested in helping young people and mould them into kind and caring people and helping others on their journey, because that's how my dad was to me.
Well, it's lovely to see that you've taken those kind of characteristics of both your parents and really embodied them in a different way and set out to kind of campaign and come up with something that you think is, worth fighting for. For people that are kind of at home when the times have been tough and you're struggling to find the money to pay for the minibus or to fund the team for next year, where do you find the kind of the resilience to keep going and to just carry on and trust the process?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't know where I find it. I just do it. I just continue. I just believe. I feel that anything that happens for a reason, and I believe that it's up to us to do something about it. It's a very competitive market. It is extremely tough, but you just have to be resilient. You just have to have that ambition of not giving up and that belief that what you're doing is for the greater good. And you have to hope that if the next fund doesn't come in, you get the next one. And you just keep pushing. You just keep sending emails. You just keep on it. And I think that's what makes or breaks people. And if you got it, you got it. And if you're determined, you're determined. And I believe having Changing Lives and running it, that I can continue it for years to come and spread Changing Lives across the country. That's one of my ambitions. That's one of my goals. And I hope that I won't ever sort of stop to achieve that.
I'm sure if you kind of took some time now to sit back and reflect at, how far you've come in 6 years, you've navigated a pandemic. As you say, you've built out a football team, a community hub. You're advocating on behalf of players to fight for their rights and to keep them in a community. So I think there's no doubt if you continue on this same trajectory, which I'm sure you will, that this is only something that's going to grow bigger and better. I know you've obviously been involved, and we touched on it earlier, with some brands that have sponsored you as well. Was that a bit of a kind of pinch me moment of, look how far I've actually come?
Yeah, it was crazy because when we was starting up, that's all I was doing. I was emailing big companies to help us with funding, with sponsorship, and literally no companies got back to me. And I was running Instagram and things like that, and it was just going really, really well. And then they started approaching us, and I was just like, "This is crazy. This is absolutely mental." That now it's just the roles have reversed, and we had a lot of interest, especially when the World Cup happened, of partnership deals and sponsorship deals. And the boys being part of the feeder campaign was amazing. They all got nice tracksuits and uniform, and we're still in a good partnership where they give us clothing, and then we get the Kit Locker deal, which is fantastic. We get a partnership with Nike, and then we get a Remitly sponsorship deal. So it's a whirlwind, really, especially when at the early stages I was getting nothing back, literally nothing. I was emailing, and then all of a sudden, it takes a bit of time, but do you know what? They come knocking. You just got to keep going at it.
Yeah, I think it's a testament to the work that you're doing that they're coming to you, but also really shows kind of the perseverance and the mindset that you've got, which is incredible.
And just on that as well, we've actually been in an article or a book written by the Blizzard, and only recently it's gone into the Spanish editors, and we're actually in 2 Spanish books as well, which is amazing. And we're still hoping and pushing for a TV documentary, and that's another aim of mine for the last 4 years, is that I wanted to share this message at a nation-wide level and get it on the screen, because I think the stories that the boys have is truly inspiring, and I think if other people can see that, then it will change the narrative surrounding the boys. So I'm pushing really, really hard every season. I try and push commissioners to try and get the TV deal. But currently, at the minute, we're still in talks, but I'm still hoping that will come off.
Well, I'll keep my eyes peeled, and hopefully one day I'll see it pop up on Netflix. That's for sure.
Hopefully.
So, I guess now that we're here, what advice would you give to someone who has seen a portion of people that they want to help? There's a cause that they want to support. How would you advise them, and what advice could you give them in setting up their own kind of business or charity?
I think if you want to set up something, you have to do it if you're passionate in it. If you have the belief in it, go into it knowing that it's going to be hard work and long hours. But if you enjoy what you do and it brings a smile to you, then it's all worth it. But yeah, it just takes a bit of time. And I can certainly help anyone out there that wants support with funding bids or creating a community organisation, a CIC or a charity, because I've obviously made some errors on my way of doing it all, but I can help you not make those same errors. So yeah, it's do it if you enjoy it and if you're passionate in something. But yeah, it will take a bit of time.
Yeah, and what's next for Changing Lives and yourself? I know we've talked about ambitions of a TV documentary, but have you got anything else stored in the back pocket?
I hope that Changing Lives is, there's hubs in every town and city in the UK. Yeah, that's my little, not my little, that's my ambition. And I want to keep growing. I want to keep pushing it as much as I can I don't know where we're going to, where I'm going to end up, but I'm not going to give up, which is the most important thing.
Yeah, I think we all hope you don't as well. I'm just going to come round to some concluding questions that we ask everyone that comes on the podcast. And the first one of those is, who's someone in your life that has inspired you, either kind of past or present?
Yeah, I would say my dad. He's an inspirational character who's been in my life, since I was a baby, and helped me grow. He was my best friend. He was my role model. I could speak to him about anything, and he was always there for me. So yeah, he inspired me a lot, and probably without him, I probably wouldn't be where I am today. And I think he was a very important person in my life.
Well, it sounds like you're carrying on his mission, because I mean, by the sound of it, you're there for so many people already. It's truly great to see.
Thank you.
What's one piece of advice that you'd like to just share with us?
I would just say don't give up. There's a lot of people out there that may say no, or may say it's not good enough, or may just shut the door in your face. But honestly, just keep going. If you believe in it, then it will happen for you. There's been a lot of times where funders have said no, or I might not have got the right investment, or people might have said that the project's not great. You just have to keep going. Honestly, you have to keep going. If you believe in it, then it will become a success. You just have to put the hours in.
Finally, for people that want to learn more about Changing Lives FC, where can they find you? Where can they donate?
Yeah, so you can see us on YouTube, Changing Lives FC. You can come to our website, which is www.knives.co.uk. communityservices.co.uk. We've got our Facebook page, Changing Lives FC. Twitter, again, Changing Lives FC. And there's always links on our pages, but on our website we've got a donation page, and every donation would be greatly appreciated. It helps with our programs, it helps with the boys. So any donation greatly appreciated. Thank you.